Yeah, he's got a knack for that panel there already. He's ready to be the next mayor. Because that's the first test.
Good morning. It is 9:04 a.m. on March 13th, 2013, and this meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board is now in session. Ms. Rowe, any public comments?
No public comments.
Item 3, adoption of the minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of February 13th, 2013. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 4, we have a presentation and discussion of the CRRMA's General Engineering Consultant design work on the Spur 1966 Schuster project. Mr. Rudd, top of the morning to you.
Good morning. Mike Rudd with the RMA GEC. Yeah, last month we gave you a presentation on the America's Interchange and your GEC design team work there. Today I would like to present to you the Spur 1966 summary and what your GEC team did there. This was a project that was that the design team started in basically the end of August of 2012. Let's see if I can get this rolling. And the intent was to try to let the project sometime in either between January of 13 and March of 13. And we ended up with the February 13 letting. As you all know, this is a connection from Schuster over by the university down across I-10 and down to Paisano. This is a look at the existing conditions and aerial. On the north side, the top corner there, you can see the UTEP parking garage and Schuster coming around. On the south side is the Andale Bridge going over I-10 and then tying down to Paisano. This is a rendering of what the new facility will look like. At the parking garage there on the top of the picture, there'll be a new roundabout on Schuster that allow access to the Spur, which is the bridge that now currently goes over, that will be going over I-10, continuation on to on Schuster and also into the parking garage. If you'll notice over on the right side, the Andale Bridge, the existing Andale Bridge, will be removed. This is another rendition. It gives you a view from the side. It shows the elevation of the bridge, obviously over I-10. But also you'll notice that Paisano, which is currently at grade, will be elevated. And so the Spur and Paisano will meet at a T intersection, an elevated T intersection. And the current Paisano, the at-grade Paisano will be removed. Here's just another picture of this from the Rio Grande, looking back towards the east, the elevated section of Paisano. The unique portion of this project is the roundabout there on Schuster. Not only will it be a roundabout, but it will also be access for pedestrians. There'll be 3 tunnels that go through, 2 of them from the parking lot to the center area, and then 1 tunnel that goes onto the UTEP property. Allows pedestrians to cross. And you'll see down on the lower right corner was one of the entrance areas, and then on the right side is the center section of the roundabout. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do with this particular project was to provide some aesthetics for the various sections of the property, and this is a look at what the UTEP side is going to look like. Anything from I-10 to back towards the north and east into the parking lot will have this little key on the retaining walls. And this is what it'll look like as you enter the tunnels underneath the roundabout. And this is just a design drawing. Now, the GEC team was scoped to do the aesthetics for this project, but we were going to take that from TxDOT's consultant and carry forward. But those aesthetics drawings were they were having some problems getting approval from everybody to have these done, so they were done late. And so we just allowed TxDOT's consultant to go ahead and finish those up because it was a little more efficient to allow them to do that. On Paisano, we're going to end up putting up a little bit different view here. This is a view of what the retaining wall will look like with the rolling hills and the mountains in the back, and as the pass of the north, showing the folks and traveling from one area to the next. And we'll give you a rendering of what it looks like here on the north side of Paisano. As you get to the elevated section, it'll just be the maroon color, the reddish color on the bridge section. But as you get across into the retaining wall, this is what it'll look like in different views.
Is that painted on, Mike?
Yes, sir, it is. Just a kind of a summary. Most of the project structures, we have about 1,200 foot of structure on the spur itself. We have about 1,200 foot, about 1,100 foot of structure on Paisano, the one we're bringing up to meet the spur, and then of course on Schuster we have what we'll call structures for those tunnels that go up underneath the roundabout. As far as how your GEC performed, we had an authorized budget of not to exceed of about $2.6 million. That included two phases. One phase was a preliminary or a pre-design phase where we basically attended meetings and reviewed the schematic that that TxDOT's consultant had put together, and then a phase two, which was actually the design. Our projected completion budget, our completion cost is going to be almost $2 million, so we've ended up having about a $600,000 left over from the actual budget.
Nice job. And this was on an expedited schedule too, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, it was. As I said, we had started this in August, and we basically finished it up right before Christmas, and it was a early February letting. Typically, a project like this would probably take anywhere from 9 months to a year to do, and we ended up doing it in about 4.5 months.
These projects have to be in TxDOT's hands, 60 days prior to letting is kind of the rule of thumb? On
these expedited, yes, sir. On the expedited projects, what we've been doing is we've been handing them in to TxDOT division, 60 days prior to the letting. That gives them 30 days to review. Then after that 30 days, it gets put up on their online system for the contractors to look at, to be able to start preparing bids for that. And then in that 30-day time before it actually lets, we respond to comments. And speaking of that, our engineering estimate for the project was about $38 million, and we had six contractors bid on it, ranging anywhere from about $31 million to close to $38 million itself. The winner, of course, was Hayden Building Corporation for almost $31 million, a difference of about $7 million from our estimate, which is a good thing. That's
where's Hayden based out of?
They're out of Arizona, I believe, out of Phoenix.
Okay. Do you know when construction is scheduled to start?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I talked to TxDOT yesterday, and what their intent is build spur first. They want to go ahead and get utilities Bill Schuster first. They want to get the utilities out of the way by the end of April, and they want to start construction on Schuster the middle of May, just right after school ends. And we will have that complete, or the project, that part of the project will be complete by the end of August. So it will be open for the fall semester for the students to be able to use again.
Which part will be open by the end?
Sorry, it'll be the Schuster part. They're only working on the Schuster part at this point. Okay. And Schuster will be closed down during the entire summer to allow them to do that.
The roundabout will be
roundabout, yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yes, sir, the roundabout area.
So the roundabout will be open in August?
It'll be open the end of August, yes, sir.
That's quick.
It is quick.
It is, yes. Well, allowing them to shut that entire area down will obviously expedite the construction, because originally we talked about possibly phasing that half and half, and that would have taken a lot.
Is that the biggest roundabout in Texas?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Is that August of this year?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then from that point, then they'll start doing work on Paisano, and hopefully they'll have right-of-way acquired so they can start working on the spur.
Any idea what the time frame on the spur is? Is that an 18-month project? Is that a,
The actual construction time, if we had everything together, would be about 20 months.
20 months?
Yes, sir.
Just one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Around the roundabout, what about the lighting in there? Is there plenty of lighting and?
Yes, ma'am. There's high mast lighting out in the parking lot area. We also have additional lighting inside the tunnels and inside the roundabout itself for pedestrians. We've also provided some additional conduit. If UTEP wants, or the city wants to go back in there and add some additional lighting for whatever reason, they have the ability to do that. The wiring that we've put in for the existing lights are sufficient to be able to upgrade the lights if they want more lights. But yes, ma'am, we've made plenty of provisions for lights in that area.
Are you putting any solar lighting?
No, sir. No, we're just going with our standard lighting package.
It's a beautiful project.
Oh, yes, and Raymond just reminded me, that's true. We had a conversation about 3 weeks ago between UTEP, the city, and TxDOT, and the city is going to donate a piece of art that they will have somebody come in to design that will be put in the middle of this roundabout. What I think the number I've heard is somewhere about $500,000 is what they're willing to donate for this piece of art. And what TxDOT has asked us to do is go back in and design the foundations for this artwork. Although we don't know what it is, we're just going to go ahead and size it to the worst possible conditions. And that way it can be constructed, the work can be done, and the city can come back in 6 months, a year, whatever it takes to put whatever piece of artwork they want with those foundations already in place. So it makes it a lot easier for them. They don't have to come back in and tear a bunch of that stuff out in the future.
Does the project include a landscaping component?
At this time, it does not. There has been discussions that the landscaping portion will be included in the Border Highway West project, just because the aesthetic portion of this particular project kind of ran behind because they were trying to run it concurrent with Border Highway West, so it lagged a little bit. So they felt like TxDOT could do this in the Border Highway West, so they'll add some landscaping in with that.
Would that landscaping include all the way up to the roundabout itself?
Yes, sir, it would. There'll be some planters there around where the entrances to the roundabout would be for the pedestrians. But I think most of it would probably be down around the Paisano area in the lower half.
Any other questions for Mr. Rudd? Mike also was the lead designer, I believe is correct, on really all the direct connectors, was instrumental in the first three, the next three that are currently let and being constructed, as well as the final two that we're hoping to get started on. So I really appreciate all of his help there, and then on this as well, and expedited, on schedule, on an expedited schedule, under budget, so great job.
Well, thank you. It's all part of the GEC team, and they're the ones that did all the work, but we do want to thank you for your support.
I think we'll be talking about a little later. There's some utility relocation that we're going to be assisting TxDOT with as well, and I think the GEC will be talking about that here on a later item. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
One last question is that what is the money that we have allocated for this project, and what is the savings, if any?
It was showed earlier, I believe it was $2.6 million was the design budget, and I think we came in $680,000. $640,000.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up, so I didn't misspeak.
In the construction project budget also, do we have any?
Yeah, it showed there, I believe it was $7 million under budget. It was Hayden and Associates, that group out of Phoenix that came in. I'm not familiar with them, Hayden Building Corp., and it was $7 million, 89,000 under budget, 18% under budget, which is great because those dollars can be used in other parts of the community.
Right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Item 5, discussion and action to approve the following as they relate to the development of the remaining work necessary for the I-10 at Loop 375 America's Interchange Project. A,
We have the wrong agenda. we have the last meeting's
Last
agenda.
meeting's agenda.
On the upper right-hand corner, you see a drop-down box. If you click it, the first agenda will read 313. Just click on that, and it'll take you to this month's agenda.
Okay.
It's newfangled stuff. This is why I always ask Raymond for a hard copy. I've always got it sitting right here in front of me. Sorry, I didn't realize you all had the wrong agenda up.
If you go to the right-hand corner.
Ms. Rowe, could you repeat what you just said about the agenda?
On the drop-down box to your right, to the right of the computer, if you hit the drop-down,
Which drop-down box are we talking about?
it says CRRMA board meeting, and it'll say whatever date it's on.
See right here?
It's above the letterhead.
It's above.
Right. Did you find it?
I did, thank you.
Yeah.
It's right here. This one right here.
I see all the February 13th. What's it called?
It's just the agenda. If you go,
Right here, right
yeah,
here.
there's a whole list of agendas, so it's,
This is the-
I'd mention while we're doing this that all of these agendas, including their backup, are available to the public as well. So this is we're very transparent.
Thank you.
the date up right here on this bar right here.
Oh, okay, good God.
You know, I'm the A&M graduate, and I got this pretty quick. You know, so I gotta give myself some kudos here.
13, all right.
Yeah, I did.
Now, is this technology changing at the new city hall, or will this all stay the same?
I hope not, but I'm not really sure honestly.
Okay. Well, if there's some retraining involved, I guess we'll get it.
Right, we'll come in a little earlier for the next meeting.
Super. Is everyone up to speed? Thanks for pointing that out. Item 5, discussion and action to approve the following as they relate to the development of the remaining design work necessary for the I-10 at Loop 375 America's Interchange Project. A board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 15.1 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant. And B, board resolution establishing the selection criteria and scoring to be used in any expedited procurements utilized for the remaining design work on the project. Mr. Tejas?
Yes, Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the CRRMA. So, as mentioned by the chairman, item 5A deals with a work authorization. So, if we go back in time, you'll recall that the original work authorization that we had with our general engineering consultant was to manage the construction of the original 3 direct connectors, and that was executed several years back. After that, we amended that original contract with them, with TxDOT, to allow for the design of the westbound-northbound direct connector. And really what we were looking at doing at that point was the general engineering consultant would provide the design work for that additional, essentially that 4th direct connector. So that was done under the original contract as a new work authorization. Subsequent to that, TxDOT entered into a new project development agreement with the RMA, whereby they asked us to provide the design for a 5th direct connector, which was at that time the westbound to southbound. So we entered into work authorization number 12 with the general engineering consultant to design that one. We amended that project development agreement with TxDOT to add the eastbound to southbound. So that ultimately gave us the design of 3 additional direct connectors. Now, what we're here before you with item 5A for is authorization to enter into a brand new work authorization with the general engineering consultant to complete the design work necessary for the last 2 direct connectors, all of the frontage road work, and the remaining clover leaves. So essentially what this work authorization does is completes the design for the ultimate schematic for the Americas interchange. So we're very excited about this one. This particular work authorization provides an additional $3.5 million to the general engineering consultant to complete this work. I would mention too, since the chairman read into the record 5B, this item ties into 5B. What 5B is a resolution authorizing the selection criteria and the scoring criteria for use in the RMA's expedited procurement process. So if we go back in time to August, you all will remember that at that time we had been working with a number of the local engineering consulting firms and groups, industry groups, to figure out how, when the RMA received expedited dollars from TxDOT, how could we plug some additional engineering firms into that stream of work. So what we developed and what this board approved in August of last year was an expedited procurement process. So that process is also a two-step, and that process requires first the development of a pre-qualification list by discipline. What we've done recently is we've sent out notice to all of the engineering firms here in El Paso and asked them if they're interested to submit their statements of qualification so that we could develop those pre-approved lists by discipline. The next step then is what you see under 5B, which is the identification by the board of the selection criteria and the scoring itself for use for this particular project when we develop the clover leaves and the additional frontage roads. So that's what you see. That's how you see them tied together. Now, I would mention we're not exactly sure just yet what portions of this work will be procured through the expedited procurement process. I know, for example, the design work for the last two direct connectors, the intent, at least at this point, is to route them through the general engineering consultants since they've already designed the prior three. We've got a number of local firms as part of the general engineering consultant team, and it would be most expedient for that same team to complete the work. They're familiar with the area, with the schematic, with all the work that needs to get done. Outside of that, though, we'll be looking at, over the next couple of days, exactly what components of the remaining work, meaning the frontage roads and the clover leaves, what portions of that can be put out through the expedited procurement process.
And this has to be completed by August, is that correct?
There are portions of it, yes. So, for example, if you all recall the braided ramp at the Americas interchange, TxDOT has already designed that project, and they did that with a consultant that they have on board. They're looking to let the braided ramp in August. They called us. I spoke with TxDOT folks last night, actually, and they asked if we could develop some of the frontage road work so that it could be packaged with the braided ramp for letting.
Does that mean it would have to be turned in, per my conversation earlier, 60 days? So that would have to be turned in sometime in June, basically, for an August letting?
That's my understanding, yes. So we've got a very tight timeline, but I'll be sitting down, as I mentioned, with our consultants today and TxDOT as well to figure out exactly the scope that they want to develop for the August letting and to determine how much of that we can run through the expedited procurement process.
The $3.5 million includes the design for basically the next two direct connectors as well as the associated cloverleaf and frontage roads. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Raymond, on B, the selection criteria, is this a result of our intent to keep as much of this business local or at least have a greater participation in making that call?
This scoring sheet is a direct result of those conversations. So when you see the scoring sheet, in fact, the scoring sheet itself, the format, and most of the numbers, we've tweaked them a little bit, but most of these numbers and categories actually came from the City of El Paso's pre-qualification list, which was given to us by the local firms as a go-by.
Yeah, because I noticed on the score sheet, 5 points are allowed for DBEs,
Correct.
right? That's where we intend to take into consideration local?
Well, honestly, when you really break out, a lot of this has to do with local issues. For example, there are 10 points for the project manager's familiarity with local project issues, agencies, and local and regional setting. So there are other areas where local experience will actually come through as well.
Very good, thanks.
And it seems like we get these requests from TxDOT on an expedited basis. So rather than trying to go out on a procurement on a regular basis, if we had a list of basically pre-approved firms by area of expertise, it would allow us to more quickly put these projects out on the road and hopefully have greater success in using local resources is the intent of what we're trying to do here.
That's right. I would mention, too, during all of our conversations with the local engineering firms, I did mention that, there really is no guarantee. We set this up in the event that TxDOT funding came with a timeline associated with it. And it turns out it looks like that's the situation we have now. But also, as you know, working with TxDOT, things change very quickly. So this could go away as quickly as it came. So there really are no guarantees. But as the chairman mentioned, it would be nice to have and this in fact was their very request, to have this procedure in place just in case.
The Spur 1966 was an example of that. Basically, it was a very expedited time frame. We utilized the GEC, and they met that time frame I don't believe that would have been possible had we had to go through the procurement process as it existed prior to us working on this expedited procurement process. So that's what we're looking at doing. So back to 15A, a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 15.1 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 5A is approved. 5B, the board resolution establishing the selection criteria and scoring to be used in any expedited procurements utilized for the remaining design. Is there any other questions on 5B in terms of how we're looking at setting this up?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 5B is approved. Item 6, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 14.1 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant for the development of the design work necessary for the airway portion of the I-10 corridor aesthetic improvement project. Mr. Tejas?
This item, actually, I'm going to request that we delete this item, and I'll bring it back at the next, hopefully the next board meeting.
I think there's a little more work on this that needs to be done, so is there a motion to delete?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is deleted. Item 7, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a consulting services agreement with Terry Cazada, DBA, Cazada Data Management Services, through August 2013. Mr. Tejas?
As you'll recall, we brought Ms. Quesada on board some time ago. Actually, this is I believe the third contract we've entered into with her. They've been short periods. This last agreement that we entered into was from the beginning of fiscal year 13 through the end of this month. We brought Ms. Quesada on board to help us with, initially we brought her on board to help us with the MPO and their long-range planning procedures. Since then, we've actually plugged her into various other projects, and she's been extremely helpful. She's helped us with the creation, the implementation of the transportation reinvestment zones with the county, of which she did a great deal of work at the city of El Paso for. And I'm also, in fact, I intend to plug her into this expedited procurement process, because she did some of that work for the city of El Paso's engineering department as well. So she's been a great help to me. What you'll see is it's essentially the same contract as the last 6 months. It has a not to exceed amount of $20,000. She has a rate that has increased from $90 an hour to $100, and I'm very comfortable with that rate. For your background, we spent with her just over $11,000 in the prior 6 months. So we're looking at about the same amount of level of effort over these next 6 months, and this will get us through this remaining fiscal year.
I've looked at the services that Ms. Quezada is providing, and she's providing a number of great services, as Raymond mentioned, the expedited procurement process, working with the MPO and the LTP. I believe she was instrumental with the city in setting up the first TRZ, working with the county, as well as potentially Anthony and Vinton as they look to explore to set up TRZs. Is that correct, Mr. Tejas?
Yes, sir.
So really a great handoff, great assistance, and subject to that, do you have any questions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item 7 is approved. Item 8, discussion and action to ratify the acceptance of fiscal year 2012 annual audit per the action of the Finance Committee meeting on February 21st, 2013. Mr. Tejas.
So on this item, as you'll recall, at the last board meeting, there was one item that was outstanding. We got that resolved shortly thereafter, and we were able to take the final audit report to the Finance Committee the week after the last board meeting. The Finance Committee accepted it per the delegation of that authority of this board at the last meeting. However, we also agreed at the last board meeting that we would bring this back for a full ratification of the acceptance at this time. So subject to your questions, I'm recommending approval of the ratification.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those not in favor? Item 8 is approved. Item 9, presentation, discussion, and action on a report from the CRRMA's General Engineering Consultant Team on its use of local resources. Mr. Jacobs.
Good morning. Pete Jacobs with the GEC.
IT, if we could have the Elmo on.
Okay, as you can see, this is the update for the quarter from November through January. And I have extra copies up here if anybody would like some. And we are still, the local labor is still higher percentage-wise. Excuse me. We are using more of the local folks for the projects. The overall, we're still slightly high, just slightly over 50% of all the work is being done by local participation or employees. So if you have any other questions, the other two sheets break it down. One of them breaks it down by the different task.
Okay. Pete, can you define local for me?
It is local employees. These are the employees who live locally or based on there. So we take it, every individual employee, and put it out there.
So the way that we've done this was really, we were looking for local impact. So the way that we've defined it is that if an individual, even if the individual works for a firm that is not headquartered here, but that individual lives here. For example, Pete Jacobs is the perfect example. He works for Atkins, which is a global firm, but Pete lives here. So his time and his hours go into the local bucket.
Plus he pays property taxes, whether you're rent,
Correct.
buy,
That's the
whatever.
idea.
Your dollars are spent here, and so on and so on, right?
That's exactly correct. Going back to this, the second sheet is the breakdown by work authorizations spent through January, and then the last one is by company of the GEC team.
Now that we know where we stand and we're making significant improvements since we've been getting these reports, where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? I think is the question. And that's a decision that we need to make as a board, and I think we'd like feedback from the local engineering firms as partners in this process as we build this infrastructure.
I believe the direction is to utilize local resources whenever possible, when we can meet the project deadlines and when the expertise exists in the local community, and we can do it competitively on a cost basis. That basically we should be utilizing local firms to the extent possible. If in an expedited timeline or there's some other reason, a valid reason why we have to outsource through the GEC, then then we do so. But I believe the intention is to, whenever possible, utilize local resources. An example of that is kind of the associated improvements with the cloverleaf and the frontage roads on the interchange project, various other components or projects that we're looking at down the road.
And that's what we're doing, but I mean, is our purpose just to kind of get these reports every month or so, or every few months, and just kind of see where we are in terms of progress?
I think what we're trying to do is create a sense of transparency with the local engineering community and with the local community in general, to let them know where we're at on, of the dollars the GEC is spending, how are those dollars being spent. And those offer opportunities for discussion in areas where maybe there's areas that we could improve upon, such as the expedited procurement process, giving us the ability to put more projects out to the local community. So I don't think we have set, and I don't think we should set a certain percentage. I think the goal of the board basically is, and the direction of the board is, to utilize locals whenever possible per the parameters that I discussed earlier.
And the reporting serves as an accounting for Mr. Jacobs, knowing that he has to provide a report and get up here, and so it's just a way of presenting the information needed out to the community.
Pete, how easy is it for someone in a various discipline to become a member of the GEC team, to become part of a local firm? I know that at the beginning you held some outreach to a number of local firms, asking them to participate with you? How easy is it for someone if they want to basically work with you on a project down the road, or they have some expertise that you could utilize, the GEC team could utilize? How easy is it for them to be added to your team?
It's just as simple as adding them under our contract and then having you folks approve that they're added to our team. As far as the qualifications, that's part of the process that's been put in place now. On a normal situation, we would evaluate where building a team as we come into it to start on a project, for instance, to be the GEC. We evaluate what works best to get local firms involved, as well as the expertise of the main GEC or the prime on those contracts. So during the evaluation process, we try to see, what's good to add to the team by their qualifications. At the same time, you don't want to get so many people on your team that all of a sudden everybody's at 2% or 3% of the total project, because then a lot of people don't like to get involved. But on a case like this, what you're asking is very simple for us to, if the qualifications are there, we feel that it doesn't impact the existing team members by adding an additional local firm, it's very easy for us to add to it.
Are there any disciplines that you currently need assistance in, where you need some local, where we need more local support?
We could always use some more support, like in drainage. Drainage is a very good one. That's something that you'd like to use local firms mainly for, because every area is slightly different, and especially El Paso compared to the rest of the state. So local drainage is a big one. Utilities is another one.
What kind of outreach do we do then for firms where we could use some additional support? Are we waiting for those firms to reach out to us, or are we actually actively soliciting some of these local firms to be part of the team?
At this time, we are not active. Well, we're doing it through your procurement process.
The way that the original way that we were doing it was that we had the open house, we met with the chambers of commerce and that sort of thing. So we kind of had this initial rollout to let the local engineering community know that we need to know who you are so we can pull you into our team as needed. Since then, and part of the concern actually from what I heard from the local firms was that we needed a much more structured approach as opposed to just calling somebody that you ended up liking during the conversation. So what we did was we implemented this expedited procurement process, and that really is going to give a resource to our general engineering consultant, because then it basically identifies all the folks that are available in this region by discipline. So whenever the general engineering consultant needs a drainage firm, then we've got it. We've got the firms identified there, and we can go to them very quickly and have them on board in a very short period. So as Mr. Jacobs mentioned also, the actual addition of a firm to the GEC is very easy. We in our original agreement with the general engineering consultant, we provided that they can add members essentially very quickly. The only limitation is that they have to run it by us so that we know who they're adding. So that gives us some additional say so in terms of who gets added to the GEC team. And in fact, it's been used several times where, by way of example, when we brought on a local geotech firm, that was done very quickly, and it was approved at the administrative level to bring on that local firm. So this has been used several times.
Any other questions for Mr. Jacobs?
Are there still any other concerns by locals that we can improve? Have you expressed confidence, or is there some frustration?
I haven't heard anything.
I think there's always the general thought that we can improve and we could distribute more of the work to the local firms. I think that's always going to be there. But from what I had heard with the adoption of the expedited procurement process, they seemed very, and in fact you all heard that in August at that meeting, where they seemed very pleased with the procedures that we were using, as it was essentially what they had asked for, which was to replicate what the city did with their pre-qualification list. So I think that they were happy with it. Honestly, after these statements, you're probably going to hear from them directly to either contradict or support what I'm saying. Outside of that, I think that we can always do a little bit better, and that's really, as mentioned, that's why we have these reports, so that you can see if you're not comfortable with that percentage, then I need to hear that, and we can continue to tweak our processes until we get it to where you are.
And per Mr. Tejas' comments, I think the local engineering community has done a good job, basically reaching out to us, letting us know what their concerns are, and it's because they've reached out to us and they've discussed their concerns that we're working to, as a team, to do a better job. That's why we're holding these meetings. That's why we're asking the GEC to present these reports on a regular, consistent basis and kind of open up where the dollars are being spent, how they're being spent. The last procurement that we put out, there was some discussion about how that could be improved. So we're constantly tweaking the process and trying to do better.
In fact, to play on that point as well, the last procurement process there was a concern with the points used. That's why now you see the criteria and the scoring coming to you for approval at the board level now. So we are tweaking this process as we go forward, and I'm hopeful that we are being responsive to the
Right. There was a little difference between the RFP and the RFQ in terms of how they were set up. Based on that, we've kind of realigned the RFQ, I believe. That's how that was set up, right, Mr. Tess?
Well, we actually revised the RFP scoring criteria as a direct result of those comments, yes.
That's what I meant. Thank you.
We understood.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Jacobs? Thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you.
Item 10, discussion and action on the Executive Director's report. A, an update on the discussions with the City of El Paso regarding the international bridges. I'll update the board on this particular point. There has been some conversations with the city. Last year, the city approached us with taking over potentially the management of the bridges. We're currently looking at that in regards to the overall the city bridges, the two downtown and the city bridge at Zaragoza, taking over the management, the maintenance, looking at how that potentially would work, how we would structure all that together. We believe there's a lot of advantages to a authority that's strictly focused on mobility, focused on the bridges, looking at how we could better utilize those bridges, how we could staff those bridges differently, utilizing some of the technology perhaps that we're utilizing with our new toll tag on the bridges, as we potentially look at also including parking, tying all of those things together. And then as you saw with Spur 1966 and what the border highway that's coming right behind that, basically having a system as opposed to individual piecemeal. So we are in discussions right now with the city about how that would work. There are certain revenues that come off those bridges that go into the city, how those would continue to go forth. And so that's kind of a high-level look at what we're doing right now.
There's actually another part to that. If we actually institute a toll collection system similar to what we're going to be using in our other projects, there will be more people that will have to sign up or will want to sign up for a text tag, for instance, that otherwise might not. And so you're going to capture a lot more tolls on our other projects as well that these people might not be citizens of the U.S.
And at the end of the day, it's convenient. And if we could expedite the movement of people and cargo and pedestrians through those bridges and through the various managed lanes, that's what it's all about, trying to expedite how we get people from point A to point B with a minimum of congestion, with a minimum impact on the environment, and doing it in a cost-effective manner. So to your point, that's a very good point.
There is no electronic toll collection yet on the bridge. Is that correct?
Well, they use a system of tickets in certain areas, and they also have barcodes for some of the commercial haulers. But what you're mentioning, I think, is more in line with where the RMA would take it if we get involved, which is the use of those transponders. So you basically have one sticker, one account tied to your crossing at the borders, your Chavez use of the toll roads, with
potentially your parking,
the parking facilities, and that sort of thing. So you'd start to see a larger system with more flexibility.
Potentially tying in the airport down the road, so you, instead of having to stop at the airport and pay and sit in line when you're tired at the end of the day, potentially we tie all these in. You have one tag that pays for all of those services. You go through basically an automatic collection at the airport. Reads you when you come in, reads you when you go out. You just zip right through and you pay via credit card or however it's set up.
And all the projects we're involved with would then see a higher toll revenue, because you'd have more people who want to have toll tag for that reason.
Correct. And none of the projects that we're putting in are going to have any sort of manual toll collection. All of them are automated, so you have to have a tag in order to utilize those facilities, or you're going to get something in the mail with that invoice where you've got to then write a check, put it in the mail, send it off. It just increases everyone's cost and inefficiency as opposed to making all of this manual to the extent that we can. At the end of the day, you know, like on Chavez, the citizens still have a choice. You can take the free lanes or you can take the managed lanes. It's all about how you want to work going forward. But where the tolls currently exist, you know, having the ability to pay those tolls electronically adds a lot of convenience.
Mr. Chairman, just, I know there's multiple groups that are working on the port issues, and I hope that we're coordinating with those groups, including our sister city in Juarez, because they're also working on their side on the ports. But just as long as we are talking to, because there's various groups, and I want to make sure that we're communicating with these groups, and at some point we hope we're all sitting around the same table to talk about those.
The first point is just kind of discussing with the city how the transition, if we were to take over the bridges, how that would work. Basically how the allocations of revenues would work. The city gets a certain amount of that toll revenue that they use in their general fund every year. The maintenance, the employees that currently work for the bridge department. So that those are all those discussions, just basically the operations. And at that point, if we were to take over the bridges, which I believe is kind of our destiny as the RMA, as we look forward to, as a mobility authority, then we could look at utilizing this board, reaching out, and then take a look at how we're going to make those bridges more efficient. What can we do?
Is this part of the master plan? It is. I'm sorry, yes, it is. It's on the list of the
Right.
items, okay.
And to an extent, we have been attending, you know, the mayor's meetings on Monday. We have been part of that. In fact, we were on the IT subcommittee, so we are at least dialoguing. But I think at this point, like the chairman said, this is strictly from the operational perspective. Nothing to do with the widening or increases. It's just basically operational at this point.
And none of this is set in stone. These are just very, very preliminary discussions. There may be something that comes up in the future, so we just wanted to address it. There's no action that's required. There's not anything that's different today that didn't exist yesterday. It's just something that we're looking at in discussions currently with the city.
Mr. Chair, has anybody had discussions with the county, their bridge coming up? Number one, and number two, as you may know, I also work part-time for the city of Sunland Park as their city planner. The city just received a letter from the Department of State itemizing a few things that needed to be answered before they can proceed, and those are being answered. Have we had any discussions with Sunland Park? And then also the bridges that are not owned by the county or the city, by the federal government. So I know that you may want to take a look at just the city itself, but my question right now is that I would like for this organization to look at the entire port operations.
That makes a lot of sense. And for us to manage all the ports, basically from New Mexico through El Paso and into the county, I believe to have one entity. Obviously, that's out of our control. I believe there has been some limited discussion with the county in regards to their new bridge, and I don't believe that there's been any discussion with Sunland Park whatsoever. But there's really nothing formalized on the county side. I believe that if we can basically put the agreement together with the city, we could then go and present to the county a really good option for managing that bridge, and then basically leave it up to the county to determine what they think is in their best interest in regards to how to manage that asset going forward. And as I sat on the Ports of Entry committee that we sat on about 2 years ago, you know, no one ever really has sat down and tried to look at the bridges as a system. We look at kind of piecemeal individually, asset by asset, port by port, entry by entry. And I think by having the authority, have the ability to manage all of those ports from Sunland Park potentially into the county at Tornillo allows us to work as a system to maximize the throughput on those bridges, to maximize convenience, to maximize how well we are utilizing those assets. And it makes a lot of sense.
And it's true to say is that some entities may not want to be included, but I believe it's within our privy to go ahead and extend that idea to them and then let the negotiations go where they go.
I think the key is first is to kind of get everything moving forward with the city, and then we could use that agreement basically to present to other entities going forward and see what the options are there. Mr. Tejas, did I miss anything?
No, sir.
10B, the city council reappointment of members Volk, Dominguez, and Melendez. Mr. Tejas?
Included in your backup is the executed resolution from the city of El Paso extending those appointments through February 1 of 2015. So 2015, that's a good thing.
Item 10C, I'm sorry, Mr. Tejas, did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Item 10C, update on project development agreement with TxDOT for Loop 375, America's Avenue Managed Lanes project. Mr. Tejas?
So as you'll recall, this item, a couple months back, you all authorized the executive director to sign the project development agreement once it was developed and proposed by TxDOT. In fact, yesterday, I received a copy of a red line version, and our lawyers have gone through it, our engineers have gone through it, and they're comfortable with it. So I will be signing that this morning and hand delivering it to TxDOT today. To go back in time and remind you all that this is the last item necessary for us to issue. Once this is executed, we can then issue the notice to proceed to the engineering firm that we selected a couple months back for the preliminary engineering and environmental work necessary for the America's Managed Lanes. So this is that final piece that we've been waiting on for a little while. Thankfully, it's hopefully I'll be able to sign that today, and we should get it back hopefully very soon from TxDOT, at which point I will issue the notice to proceed, and I'll keep you posted on those timelines as well.
And that'll go to Brown and Gay, I believe, that was selected back in December through the procurement process.
Yes, sir.
Item 10D, 2013 TxDOT Transportation Forum, Austin, Texas. That was attended by our Vice Chair, Ralph Adami, and also by our board member, Ricardo Dominguez. Mr. Adami, you have any update there?
No, again, it was very informative, and I'm glad two things are happening. TxDOT's aware of the Panama Canal being widened. That's going to allow for bigger ships to come through, and being proactive in getting the Port of Houston ready for when that happens. And then what was different from previous conferences, I guess, because they had the legislature in session, is we got to speak to quite a few of the senators and representatives that sit on the respective transportation committees. And while the news was not as good as it should be, at least they got an idea as to what the funding is going to look like. So that was an interesting dynamic to the panels they had this year. Mr. Dominguez?
Yes, sir. Mr. Vice Chair, many times the purpose for going to these kind of meetings is twofold, maybe even more than that. The first is to learn about any new items coming up, and I certainly agree. From my part, it was pointed out very clearly is that I don't want to call it global warming, but we have seen a pattern where the storms that are coming in are lasting longer. And as the man was making that presentation, I thought about it, and certainly it isn't so much that they're occurring more. There may be from time to time, where we had a snowstorm a day or two, it may take 4 or 6 days. Or we had a rain that may come in 1 or 2 days, it may take a few more days and so forth. And it kind of reminded me of the big storm that we had here in El Paso, where the storm of 2006 is what I call it. We had a lot of rain. It rained for about a week, and we're flooded out. And it just brought to mind a project that I'll be discussing with the chair later on. But it's something for us to consider, and I'm sure the engineering community is thinking about that. So our designs are set to some historic design standards, but should we be looking at designs that are more enhanced because of the duration of these storms? And it's quite, the other thing is to network. And I met a couple of people from other MPOs and from other RMAs, and they were telling me, well, MPOs, in fact, it was hard to believe they knew about the port in Mexico where it was thought that it was going to be, that it had died. And in fact, it's still somewhat alive, and that's going to be competing with a port in LA and San Diego. So while it may be dormant, it's not completely dead, and that will impact freight train and so forth. And the other idea is to, what I did is network with some of our local engineers, and I got a chance to talk to Ray.
Speaking of that, we got to play the game, Where in the World is Raymond Tellez?
That's right, that's right. Where's Ray?
I think we finally caught up with him on the last day, about 5 o'clock, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure.
I'm sure he was
And
very
that was at
busy
the
with
airport,
board work.
Well, for the record, I was with many TxDOT individuals that can vouch for my presence at each of those seminars.
Well, I very much appreciate, as everyone knows, we're all volunteers, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and out of your day to spend, I believe, 2 days in Austin. I believe it's time well spent. I was there last year, and so I'm grateful, and, for you taking that time and enhancing your knowledge that will improve our service to the board. Item E, update on the CRRMA relocation to 300 North Campbell.
So this will be a brief one. They moved us last week. I have an office, so I'm happy to report that. Everything is in there, so it's actually worked out very well. This will likely be the last meeting of the Regional Mobility Authority here in this particular building. As I understand it, the council will have meetings throughout the rest of this month here, and hopefully before the end of this month, the council chambers will be built out in the new building, the former El Paso Times building at 300 North Campbell. Hopefully the chambers will be ready in April. If they're not, their contingency plan is to have any meetings in April in the library's, one of the library rooms. I believe it's a large room. Thank you, auditorium in the library. So that will be the contingency plan. And that'll be the same for us as well. If we have, for example, if we have to have a special meeting between now and then and this building is coming down, then we'll just have it in the library. But I'll keep you posted, of course. And one of the issues that I've got to find out is parking. I don't know where your all's parking will be. So we'll figure all of that as we move forward.
Super. And as Raymond mentioned, potentially there may be the need for a special meeting at the end of March. And we probably would then not have our April meeting, but we'll keep you posted there. And then Raymond, if that happens, will let us know what the locale would be for that particular meeting.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you for your continued service to the board and to the community. And I'm sure as the citizens are grateful. It is now 10:01 a.m. on March 13th, 2013, and this meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you.